Good afternoon and good morning to everyone. We'll just wait for 30 seconds just for everyone to join us. Okay, as I said, we'll just wait a few more seconds for those that are joining us now. Okay, Ken, I think we should start. So good afternoon and good morning to those of you that have joined from the States and overseas. My name is Melanie Pitsey and I'm the CEO of the Global Payroll Association. So thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Why now, more than ever, you need integrated global payroll and HR systems. We want this webinar to be as much use to you as possible, so please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A box, which should be on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will answer these towards the end of today's session. So I'm delighted that ADP have joined us today, and Ken Hertzler is presenting this webinar. So welcome, Ken, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Melanie, and I will go ahead and share my picture and get to the next slide. There we go. Excellent. Well, thank you for joining. I'm responsible as head of product marketing for global products at ADP for all of our international products and solutions, including our global payroll initiatives. I've got over 30 years of experience in information technology, in product development, and in product marketing with multiple years, few decades, in fact, working out of the Silicon Valley. And I've helped with both global operations and both mid-size and global companies delivering top-line growth and cost efficiencies. But before I joined ADP, I also helped create value and successfully worked with investment firms, 4 private equity firms in particular, with software technologies and global firms, including exits to IBM, Hewlett-Packard, and WorldPay. But that's enough about me. Let's get into the topic at hand. Had this webinar taken place earlier in 2019, we might have been talking about how to make sure your human resource information system, or HRIS systems, could help your company grow. But in our today's COVID world, organizations want to know what they can do to stabilize their companies. How can you carry on even when you don't know what future holds in store? And with the World Bank and the OECD predicting economic contraction of probably around 5 to 8% in this coming year, it's even more important that you invest, we believe, in HR technology. And that means ensuring that your payroll and your HR systems can share data to ensure that they work as efficiently as possible. In fact, in a recent report from McKinsey last August, suggests that the COVID-19 crisis has accelerated the automation and digitization processes. And this is hardly surprising, as machines, of course, don't have to worry about social distancing. But they do need to stop work because of the pandemic, and we need to keep going. Yet the McKinsey report also said that upskilling and reskilling the workforce will become even more a priority. And of course, the latest HCM technology, that is human capital management technology, has a vital part in playing that role. McKinsey also estimates that the automation and digitization would increase as a result of the pandemic. The global human capital management market was estimated to be over $20 billion and growing at a rate of almost 6% due to organizations of all size embracing cloud-based technologies. Nelson Hall, another analyst firm that tracks human resource management software technologies, estimates that in the next 5 to 7 years, over 90% of large enterprise organizations operating on legacy or on-premise systems will have to transition to a cloud-based system, be it core HR or, more importantly, payroll systems. Replacing these aging legacy or disparate HR systems with modern cloud-based platforms enables a more efficient HR delivery model, allowing users and HR to focus on strategic initiatives rather than administrative tasks, particularly if we're going to be working in a virtual environment. It will help forward-looking organizations, those that are working to stabilize and those that are growing during COVID, to compete for, develop, and retain your top talent. They'll use technology to drive employee engagement, productivity, and of course, wellness. Whether the take-up of new technology will continue at the same rate following the pandemic remains to be seen. But what is certain is that just about every organization will have witnessed the benefits of cloud-based HR solutions as workers were forced to work from home and companies had to cope with the reduced workforces due to sickness and potentially quarantine. The pandemic will only serve to increase the need to attract, develop, and retain top talent, all of which requires modern integrated platform technologies that can support the future of work and the alignment of the overall digital transformation strategy of every one of your businesses. If anything, organizations should be looking at cloud-based solutions that offer some stability in this uncertain world. Well, in recent years, many organizations have expanded operations to include international locations. And this, combined with the lack of skilled payroll expertise in a lot of these new geographical locations, and the underestimation of the skills and effort required to maintaining modern cloud platforms, has led many to seek third-party outsourcing solutions and expertise for ensuring accurate, timely, and compliant payroll execution. There's a clear need for organizations to address this challenge of running payroll in a world in which, according to Thomson Reuters, there were over 56,624 payroll-related legislation changes in 2019 alone. COVID has only added to these changes. With governments seeking to lessen the economic impact of the pandemic, ADP's legislation compliance experts, and we have them all around the world, reported nearly 5 times as many legislative changes in March and April of this current calendar year. That's 916, up from the 190 of only 190 in that same period the year before. It's possible that this increasing complexity is why there are so many mistakes and delays in payroll. And yes, there are many. We see it all the time at ADP. According to the Workforce View 2020 report, our own ADP Research Institute has done an extensive study of employees across the globe, and just 43% of employees say they receive their salary on time, all the time, and 26% are unsure if they got paid accurately or not. Yet payroll is the function that you simply have to get right, and you need complete, up-to-date, and accurate data to ensure your employees are paid accurately and on time. And if they're not, it doesn't only cause frustration for your employee, it causes a lot of expense as well. This, of course, can lead you with a talent retention problem. ADP's Workforce View found that employees affected by payroll mistakes are over twice as likely to be looking for a new job. Global payroll transformation has become a critical priority as many buyers have moved to a cloud HCM solution and are now seeking to future-proof payroll operations by consolidating payroll to a single global platform and a vendor governance model. As a result, companies are commonly prioritizing payroll transformation as a key element and enabler to broad HR transformation. Buyers of payroll services are keenly focused on technology when selecting a payroll vendor, with integration a critical factor. From what we have seen at ADP, buyers are seeking flexible payroll solutions that deliver reliable, consistent outcomes while creating value for organizations beyond a simple cost play. It's not just about accuracy and compliance, though those are important. Bringing payroll data together with the wealth of your employee data also provides HR the ability to ensure that your payroll data is accurate and your HR data is accurate. Both. After all, there needs to be a check both ways. This consolidated data of both your payroll employee data and your HR employee data can give you the visibility of your entire workforce, no matter where you are, and opens up a huge opportunities for real-time reporting and analytics, both looking at what has happened and predicting the future, enabling your HR department a wider view, as well as to support your management to make better decisions. So why isn't everyone outsourcing payroll and connecting it to their HR systems? Well, although outsourcing should, all things considered, be less expensive, it may not always seem to be so. The solution has to provide buyers tangible value beyond cost reductions in back office processing. Some HR leaders still have to be convinced that it will deliver value beyond traditional bureau style resources, while others who continue to see payroll as a simple cost center rather than a strategic element of HR transformation. Again, according to Nelson Hall, buyers of cloud HCM platforms are commonly addressing the payroll transformation within around 12 months of the HCM deployment, but many assume a cloud HR solution must be in place first in order to take a payroll transformation initiative in a new project. In fact, the reality is that it's much easier to put a global payroll solution in place while implementing your global HR system. Not only is it easier, but the HCM first model of digital transformation actually has failed to pick up a lot of critical data that was held in the payroll system, and the data became out of sync between the two systems. I'll pause there. We're going to take a poll and get some feedback from you. Melanie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Ken. Okay, so the question is, how many payroll vendors do you have globally? So let's launch this poll. Okay, so 1 single global payroll vendor, 2 to 5 payroll vendors, 6 to 15 payroll vendors, more than 15 payroll vendors. What do you think is going to be the top result on this one, Ken?
We have found at ADP and a global payroll, we have many clients. We've had some that have had as many as over 50 different payroll vendors with some of our larger clients. And so it's very common to have quite a few. The average tends to be in this range, which is why we've selected these 4 options. So let's see what the audience is.
Okay, we'll give it a few more seconds. I'll try and get to at least 75% to vote in. So if a few of you can vote in, that'd be fantastic. Just a few more. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's close the poll and see what the results are. Okay, the results are 33% 1 single global payroll vendor, 30% 2 to 5 payroll vendors, 6 to 15 payroll vendors is 25%, and more than 15 payroll vendors is 13%.
Yeah, so that fits very well with the model. More than 2/3 of you, or about 2/3 of you, have 2 or more payroll vendors, which is very interesting. And now that means you have different systems of records. And we're just talking about payroll here, not necessarily your entire HCM system. Well, let's take a look at what the pros and cons would be for a lot of you who have these multiple vendors. Let me move on. Yeah, in fact, if your payroll is not united with your HCM solution, you might be asking for a little bit of trouble. There we go. On one hand, if your payroll system is independent of your HR system, you run the risk of higher costs and potentially your data from your employee information being inconsistent, because after all, we have found that nearly 60, in some cases up to 80% of the data in your HR system are also needed in your payroll system. So you have maybe 2 copies of the employees' names and addresses and information like that. But on the other hand, if your payroll is embedded into your HR system, let's say you buy an HCM system that includes payroll, you run the risk of not fulfilling your coverage because you have multiple countries that you need to cover, and the HR system often is limited in the number of countries that it can cover or regions that it can cover. and the expertise is needed in other regions, and you have to seek additional vendors, which is why the large majority of you have more than one payroll vendor. So making sure that your HCM and payroll systems are seamlessly integrated and to be set up to deliver reliable data is a must. We believe it is, and it can be done. Otherwise, you cannot seek the benefits of cost efficiencies as well as reporting and decision making. So passing data between two different disparate HR systems is just slow and often frustrating and very expensive. Not to mention the fact that you might be missing some vital information. So if your HR, payroll, talent, benefits, time and attendance, and other data analytic functions aren't working from a single organized system of record for your employees, they actually tell you very little about the overall state of your business when it comes to employee questions, especially if you're trying to draw information from different countries and regions. Well, bringing payroll and HR together means no more struggling to work with separate platforms, no more searching for local data as you're processing the pay run, no more delays when you chase employees to provide missing details. And it's not just time and hassle that properly unify HR and payroll systems will save. Consider the cost of keeping track of the myriad payroll-related legislation changes each year. And of course, they vary from country to country, as many as I mentioned a bit ago. Not to mention the worry that some tiny detail may have slipped unnoticed. Then there's always a chance of errors when information missing from your systems of records must be keyed in manually. Of course, it's possible to have custom integration built into your systems to integrate the data together, but these can provide a level of integration. But the need for regular upgrades is another irritation, not to mention the cost of customizing these integrations. You could probably do without that. What Thomson Reuters said in their global compliance trends in 2016 still is relevant today. I quote, "If you're a multinational organization with employees in 15 to 30 countries, your IT team is typically managing 60 to 100 payroll integration files to cope with the varying pay cycles of your different employee populations." That's bad enough, but throw in the 50,000 plus regulatory and compliance changes that took place in 2015 alone, and it's clear that you need to employ a tribe of IT experts just to generate and maintain the interface files as legislation triggers changes in requirements, end of quote. And why should you think about implementing your global payroll in parallel with your global HR system? This is because of the extra complexity that payroll can bring to your HR transformation, because payroll sits outside of the global HR solution and continues to operate with different local systems, as it's time-consuming and costly to integrate your global HR solutions with lots of different payroll systems, one for each country often in many cases. To ensure that the data is shared, it's much better to implement an integrated global payroll solution that collects all your local payroll data in one central platform. Or alternatively, something like, don't forget to count the additional complexity payroll can bring into your HR transformation. But how do you exactly go about connecting your HR and payroll systems? Basically, you have a choice of two ways to connect your global payroll data to your HR technology. You can do it the hard way, or you can do it the easy way. The hard way involves a technical or custom integration between systems, assuming both systems provide an interface. Of course, the interface is the bridge that allows the two systems to share data, which can sound perfect, but you're still responsible for kind of 6 different actions. Just to quickly go through them. You have to, first of all, if you have an API or application programming interface, you have to extract the payroll data. You'll need to develop file extensions requiring rather considerable IT investment from your HR system to send whoever's handling the payroll the data. Number 2, you've got to resolve the errors. If the errors do happen, you'll receive error validation. Sometimes they're through email to a generic email address. Number 3, you got to have source payroll information. You need access to the database and resources assigned to local payroll information, not stored on your HR system. and often it's entered manually in different systems. You have to reconcile the data if there's mismatches, especially if you're using different vendors. You got to make sure that the data is consistent, and you have to set up through the APIs that consistency. And then, of course, there's always software upgrades and compliance upgrades for different regulations around payroll. And this could be a huge problem with platform versions, upgrades, or legislation changes, as I mentioned. And then lastly, there's a kind of a global payroll implementation piece where you want to kind of bring all these different disparate payroll systems together so that you can get a global picture and to be able to run your payroll together with single reporting and single user experiences for businesses that need to see their, or employees that need to see their pay stubs in the same way for supporting your employee base. And of course, the more countries you have, the lengthier that process and more complicated it can be. So all of this could create an inferior employee or user experience. Users will need, in some cases, especially managers and payroll runs, need to sign into multiple systems in order to access their data or to get their information or to run payroll for that matter. So alternatively, you can choose the easy way to connect your HR and payroll systems together in a seamless and certified integration. And there are two pieces that you need to make this happen. First, you need to map the employee data into pre-built data connectors. And second, you need to surface the payroll fields in your HR system that are not already in your payroll system, or vice versa. To this latter point, your payroll partner should be able to take care of that for you, and we certainly look at it that way. But let's cover these 2 points in a little more detail. Extracting payroll data, the first point, is done with, should be done, in fact, with a pre-built certified connector, not something that's custom built. You want your payroll vendor to pre-build these connectors designed for each of the popular HCM or HR systems. And that way, your payroll partner will automatically connect to that HR system, and it already knows the data schema or the data structure that's in that HR system because it can align it automatically with the data structure within your payroll system. This means your HR system is retained as the master system of record, and your payroll system becomes the slave system of record. The pre-built connector is to be built by the payroll vendors, experts who know the technical platforms on both sides, so you don't need to worry about custom extractions. Also, resolving errors is validated because it's done automatically through data syncing. But the second point is the source payroll data. One of the problems or challenges of having your HR system as the system master is that not all the data fields in the HR system are fully supported to support the payroll runs. In other words, there are certain payroll data fields in the payroll system that are lacking within the HR system. And so that's where reconciliation needs to take place. And those fields can still be retained within the payroll system, but it's managed through the HR systems. Okay, we'll show you some examples in just a minute on how that can work. These reconciliations are automated and can generate a variance report to identify any data discrepancies between the HR system, but the entire management is done through the HR system. So as for maintenance, system upgrades, they can become available as legislation changes are released, the payroll engines can be updated, and the calculations can be ensured to be compliant. As for global payroll implementation and reporting, you can still grow and generate your reports all on your HR data. And therefore, the user is experienced, whether you are an employee or if you're a manager or if you're a payroll operator, you have a single experience through the HR system. So, in summary, not only is the hard way more difficult, it's much costlier and more likely to lead to errors and non-compliance. And so I recommend this easy way where you're working with a pre-built certified connector provided by the global payroll vendor with your popular HR system. And with that, I think we have another poll.
Yes, we do. So the next poll is, how do you integrate your HCM with your payroll system? So let's launch this poll. Okay, so build in-house custom data interfaces, use pre-built connectors by your HCM and payroll providers, not integrated. Okay, so I'll give this a few seconds for you guys to answer. Any thoughts on this one, Ken?
Yeah, I think there are two options, and that's A and B. and then, of course, if you don't have any integration, you have option C. What I was just talking about is, we want to move everybody to option B, but I think what we'll find out is that either the systems are not integrated, which is, I'm guessing, will be the most popular, we'll see, or we're going to get a large percentage of people doing custom integrations between their HR and payroll systems. So
Okay, we'll give it a few more seconds. If there's some people that haven't voted out there, so if you can just go on that, that'd be fantastic. Okay, so let's close the poll. I think you might be surprised with these results, Ken. So let me close that and I will share the results with everyone. So build in-house custom data interfaces is 37%, use pre-built connectors by your HCM and payroll provider 34%, and not integrated is 29%.
So again, almost 2/3 of you are doing the first approach, which is kind of the hard way, and about 1/3 of you are doing the easy approach, and you have some pre-built connectors. I would be really curious, maybe we can correlate the data, if it's possible, between those that are using the pre-built connectors and those that have two or more different global payroll systems. That would be really, or different payroll systems, that would be really interesting to correlate. Let me move on. So not all global payroll providers, of course, do provide a seamless built-in connector with the HR system. Some of them do, but not all of them, as I described before. So what do you look for when you're trying to get a certified HR connector? What do I really mean by that HR connector? First and foremost, you must be able to distinguish those global payroll vendors that can offer the basics from those that are able to offer advanced functionality you need in order to give you a competitive edge. What a global payroll provider should have as a minimum are the following. Really are kind of three things. One is they need to have a pre-built connector. Both your HR provider and your payroll vendor work together to develop a pre-built connector to ensure all the employee data stored in your HR system that is necessary for payroll processing is automatically sent using a predefined data extraction process from one system to another. In other words, the HR system needs to be expanded to include those fields that are only used for payroll that would not normally be a part of those HR systems. So you have to watch out that these pre-built connectors are created on a per country basis. Ensure that every country's regulatory requirements for running that payroll are able to be are enabled within the HR system as part of that connector. Number two, you should receive PDF pay slips. Your selected global payroll provider sends back PDF pay slips in the form of your HR system. Requires that every payroll process, so your employees can access their PDF pay slip or pay stub directly from your HR system. So in other words, you don't want your employees to have to log into two different portals to get their pay stubs or pay slips. You want those pay slips to be available in your HR system, because that's the environment that they would typically use. And number three, you need to offer a seamless user experience to your staff as well, the managers and your payroll processing staff. Some payroll providers have their own employee portal that they may use and just offer static PDF access, that is with no interactivity. But a better option is to look out for vendors that offer a more responsive pay experience to their employees, allowing them to compare various pay slips on the screen giving descriptions of what each element means, clear views of the different elements of the salary, including tax and other deductions. This not only provides employees with better experience, but it also answers many pay-related questions and can dramatically reduce your call volumes. So in other words, we're not just talking about this pay slip being available, but we're also talking about the portal having the functionality to be able to access those pay slips for the things that you need. So these may be the top 3 reasons, but there are more that you should look at as well. So for example, some global payroll providers may be able to work closely with your global HCM vendor to offer more sophisticated, automated, integrated options. This additional capability, usually provided through an API, helps to provide seamless data transmission between your HCM and payroll solutions. So you can check to see whether your preferred global payroll vendor can offer these advanced capabilities. Another one is, in some countries, it's important to inform local tax authorities about your new hires or terminations on the same day that they take place. Seamless integration allows your staff to enter new hire information directly into your HR system, so that it automatically is sent to your payroll system within minutes. So the check here is to see whether your global payroll provider can detect these errors during data input to allow immediate corrections. Another one is, as mentioned before, 60% of your employee data needed to process compliant payroll is typically stored in the HR system, 40% in your payroll system. Some payroll providers can offer automated technology to enable your payroll administrators to enter the country-specific data, such as like passport information, things like that, or local national insurance numbers, through your HR user interface, not through your payroll interface. Even though those fields don't exist in your HR system, they still should be enterable, if I could use that word, in your HR system, but stored within your payroll system. Using different, and so the check there to see if your integration, if you have one, can support that capability, so that the payroll vendor, the employee experience, the manager experience is all from one user interface. So another one is to using different vendors for HR and payroll can lead to misalignment of employee data between 2 systems. So very few global payroll vendors offer an automated variance report to identify data discrepancies between your HR and global payroll systems. So you might, when you're checking and evaluating systems, remember to ask if these reports can be delivered directly through your HR system, and your payroll administrators can easily execute these reports on demand or schedule them at a preferred frequency. Another case is usually the predefined data extraction process is scheduled overnight, so if any errors are detected and not communicated effectively, you're asking for trouble, of course. Some global payroll vendors may be able to offer an automated process to deliver all of the integration errors in one central location for your HR and payroll teams to view and manage directly via your HR system. So again, check to see if that capability is available. And 2 more, after each payroll is processed, your HR and payroll teams need access to all of your post-payroll reports. Some global payroll providers can provide results in a format that enables your staff to access them directly from the HR interface. So look and see if those reports are accessible, even though they're generated within the payroll engine. And lastly, don't forget to make sure that you'll be able to load the bulk of your employee data during the deployment of your new global payroll solution. When deploying a new integrated global payroll solution with your HR system, you need to make sure that the historical data is also included, because you want to go back and check trend reports and to be able to perform analysis on your data going back. So confirm that you need to make sure that historical data is also included. Well, let's look at an example just briefly in a real screen from ADP's global payroll solution. And in this case, we're using a standard HR connector for Workday. So Workday is the HR system, and ADP Global Payroll is the global payroll system. And ADP Global Payroll System can support up to 140 countries. In this particular case, the employee, whose name is Eric, is from Singapore, and the relevant ADP payroll and tax cards that are required for Singapore are activated in the workplace, in the Workday user interface. So what you're seeing is a Workday screen, but the tax reference number is a field that has to be processed by the payroll calculation component for Singapore, and the data typically is stored within the payroll engine. This is not a field that Workday would normally manage. So handling errors in this case, if the field was missing, would need to be processed by the global payroll engine and then transferred back up, because the payroll clerk or the employee, whoever's entering in this tax information, is going to be entering the data through the Workday interface. So in this case, the payroll administrator would select the tax information and complete it on behalf of the employee, whose name is Eric. But what is important is that the payroll administrator does not have to enter the employee's payroll information in the payroll administration module. It can all be done right here from one interface. So as you can see, it also is a required field, and therefore the system is communicating from the payroll engine to the Workday system that this is a required field. And so the payroll administrator would be required to enter in the necessary payroll data, but through the Workday interface. But the data will be stored in the payroll system, since Workday does not have these kinds of fields. And as such, everything is consistent. The data is consistent. There's integrity. It's in the right place. You have support through the ability to run the payroll instantly. But more importantly, the experience for the payroll administrator is through a single user interface, just like the employee's experience would be if they wanted to review their pay slips. So what does it take to get a pre-configured HR connector that includes not only the data syncing, but all these other capabilities that I just walked through? Well, you must be sure to check your global payroll innovation plans regarding HR and payroll integration, and you need to have a global payroll provider that continuously invests in partnerships with the HR vendor. That's key. There has to be a close synergy between the global payroll vendor and your HR vendor in order to make sure that it's not just about the data, but it's also about the user experience to be consistent, so that your employee data will pass seamlessly between your HR and payroll systems. In other words, you need a payroll provider, a global payroll partner that listens to clients' needs, because this is what we have heard from our clients to make this process work well. And look for signs on regular client focus groups. At ADP, we do work closely with our partners, such as Workday and SAP and Oracle, Infor, and others, that have enabled us to develop this seamless integration and processes that dramatically reduce the amount of time spent reconciling HR and payroll systems. We continually evaluate our integrations with these partners on a very close and regular basis, so that we can update our systems to ensure that our clients and their clients have the best possible solutions as the technology develops. This means that your staff can use the HR system interface for any payroll-related processes, while the payroll system takes care of the back end. We take care of all of the syncing, the data reconciliation, and any error handling. And this will help to dramatically reduce time and resources spent comparing data, but also helps to reduce the time it takes for you to reach your goals in terms of employee satisfaction, and to reduce the risk of potential regulatory penalties and costs. So many benefits are at play here, as you can see on the screen. And with that, let's move to the final poll. Melanie?
Okay, so the next poll is, or the final poll is, your HR transformation strategy includes deploying one single HCM system in. So let's launch this one. Okay, so 81% to 100% of your locations, 51% to 80% of your locations, or below 50% of your locations.
Just to
Do you have any
comment
thoughts?
on this. Yeah, just to make a quick comment. Thank you, Melanie. We have seen a lot of clients start to look at an HR transformation strategy to get onto one single HR and payroll system. Many companies do have a strategy. It can take many years. We have one client, very large multinational client of over 63 countries, and they had over 40 different payroll systems and HR systems. And now they're down to just 5, but it's just taken 3 years to get to that point. So this is not something that happens quickly because we are dealing with payroll and compliance requirements, but it is important to have a plan in place. So it'd be interesting to see how many of our audiences have plans in place and at what level those plans are. Back to you.
Okay, there's a few people that haven't voted yet, so if you could do that, we'll just leave it open just for 10 further seconds. That'd be great if you could do that. Okay, so just going to close the poll in 3 seconds. Okay, let's share the results. Okay, so 81% to 100% of your locations, 68%, 51% to 80% of your locations, 21%, and below 50% of your locations, 11%.
Yeah, that's good. Sounds like a lot of you have plans in place and a strategy. So that's probably why you're on this call. So thank you very much for your feedback. Let's move on. It's good. Well, I'll just wrap up here and then we can take a few questions. The ADP integration solution offers you and your HR teams peace of mind. It means that you can budget for the future knowing that how much your solution will cost rather than working it out. The money you have allocated to IT and to build out and to maintain the extractors. It means more automation, less chance of human error, better user experience, and it makes your life easier and more productive for everyone. And a lot of benefits when you go to not just an HR connector that resolves data sharing between systems, but one that also provides a great user experience. So to summarize here, in the last slide, the global pandemic and of course the economic recession have caused most businesses to reevaluate and shift their focus from growth to stability. That may apply to many of you, and many of you also have already started to do that process and to create a shift to growth and stability through sharing of employee data even before the pandemic hit. But either way, the companies are finding themselves in a disruptive environment, and we always have to face new challenges, no matter what the economics or the global situation may bring us. And these can be quite disruptive. So you need to look for a payroll service that can offer sustainable capabilities, ensure regulatory compliance around the world, and to be able to sync and manage your employee data across disparate systems, not just within the global payroll sphere, but also with alignment of your HR or HCM system. You need to identify cost-saving opportunities by implementing a global process optimization. You need to address risk awareness and where there's a continued and increased need for improved data security. You need to focus on employee engagement. And this is where I think it's very important. As more employees work from home and worry about their jobs and need that consistent virtual environment. You need to address the blind spot around size, skills, costs of your global talent and look for ways to optimize that talent and to help employees become more efficient. And you need to make the most of the wealth of data available in your HR and payroll systems together historically as well to improve your workforce visibility and to use that analytics to make better business decisions. That can only happen if your integration between your payroll systems across multiple countries and your HR system are integrated. And it's vital that you get this integration right, not just the data, but the user experience, so that you can face up to whatever the future holds with a lot more confidence. And with that, Melanie, I'll turn it to you to see if there's any questions.
Okay, right. We have a question here. How long is it before the operational efficiencies of payroll and HR system integration really outweigh the cost of investment?
Yeah, I alluded to this in one of the analyst reports that I quoted earlier in the presentation. Come to think of it, the studies show that about a year's time it takes in order to kind of bring that parity back up. So there is going to be an investment that you have to go through, assuming that, of course, that's from the start of the system. It may take some time to get to that point. But once you get the global payroll solutions up and integrated with your HR system, usually within about a year's time, you start reaching parity, and that investment has been well worth it. So it doesn't take as much time as you think.
Okay, and the next one we have is, what steps are taken to ensure data security with payroll and HR integrations?
Yeah, so we are talking about cloud solutions here. And typically in a cloud environment, the types of interfaces that are used and the data transmissions that are used are held behind a lot of different data security protocols. Some of those are to protect the data through firewalls within your data center, of course, and of course, reputable vendors would only use the highest quality firewall data centered systems to be able to host their systems. But the other piece to this is that there are multiple applications that are sharing data between the systems, such as between your global payroll solutions and your HR system. So you have to have APIs that are secure and use the latest encryption mechanisms in order to transfer data from one to the other. And those have proven over time and are used by many companies, including the most financial companies that have very sensitive data. If you're going to transfer data over the internet using API protocols like web services that are fully encrypted on both ends, you're going to have very secure data transmissions going forward. And so far, nobody's been able to hack those if they use them properly, obviously. So safe, I would venture to say, is the answer to that question.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Ken. That's it for now. I think we're just running out of time. So thank you so much for your time today. Just to let everyone know, this is being recorded. So if you have missed any of it or would like to rewatch it, it will be available. And also the slides will be on our website. I'll also send you an email just to tell you where everything is so that you can watch it or go through the slides again. So thank you once again, Ken. Look forward to seeing you on the next webinar that we run with you, and stay safe and look after yourself.
Thank you, everyone.